bummed I did not make that.
All right, we're being recorded now, so say whatever you want. Just realize that it'll be out there for anyone who wants to listen. Now, the show was great, I think. Um, Coming off of what we've had in the past couple of years, it felt like close to normal.
It was seeing people. I was
Yeah,
reticent. I didn't know if I was really going to go, and then I said to myself, I can't complain about PU if I don't go and at least participate. So it was better than 2019, much better than 2019. But so
yeah,
many people didn't come. So I think this will be the icebreaker next year. It'll be
I
terrific.
agree. I have a feeling that Long Beach is going to be so much better again, just because I think the word has gotten out that, hey, they're exhibiting, they're showing up. The crowds were really, I was surprised. First day crowds were really good. The second day was equal to the first day, and the third day, surprisingly, was actually pretty strong for a third day. So, well, that was good. Of course, we're waiting for Alex, who's supposed to be on, but we'll see. He wouldn't be the first no-show.
Uh-oh.
Then again, we'll see what happens. But in any event, cigars and drinks are certainly good. I can tell you that.
Yeah, we had a terrific get together.
Yep.
Scott Pressner, Marshall Atkinson, and Glenn Schultz showed up.
Yeah.
Also, Alan Howe, of course.
No, it was good. Definitely good. But I think the atmosphere was really the best part of it. There was definitely a buzz in the air, and it hadn't been there in several years. So, well, it'll be just interesting to see how Long Beach does come together. But it certainly should show strongly.
Have you talked impressions about what they've got going on or classes that they're setting up or to sort of gauge the volume?
Well, I know what I'm doing. I'm doing 2 day-long workshops. One the day before the show on basics, and the second one on advanced. And I do have an automatic coming into my room.
Oh,
So to me, that's pretty good. M&R is putting in one of their new copperheads, a very small version. So even in talking to them for a friend, an 8-color, 12-station copperhead comes in at 55,000,
hmm.
which is really, really good. I think the one I'm going to have in my room is going to be a 5-color, 8-station with a flash in it. So basically six. In essence, it would have been a 6-color machine, but there's a flash in the second station, and that one is supposed to come in the mid 40s to low 40s,
Did they
something
say
like
their
that.
lead times on stuff yet?
Those are coming out of India, and I don't think the lead times are very bad at all on Indian made product. So, and they're really quite different than the M&Rs made in the U.S. They have the high lift on the heads, which is something that none of the M&Rs made in the U.S. have. And to me, I think that's really a big feature, especially when you're setting up. You can look straight down at your image as opposed to from the side.
Mm-hmm.
They're extremely quiet. They're predominantly electric, although they do use some air to move the head configuration up and down and to move the squeegees. But I thought it was a nice machine from what I could see. I mean, you don't know where it is until you really get on it and play with it. But um, there's certainly nothing about it that seemed chintzy. And it definitely had some features on it that I thought M&R really needed to start to add into their machines here. The
Are you setting it up or are they setting it up for you?
Hell, I don't set up anything. Are you kidding? I'm lucky to get myself out of bed. No, the only thing I set up was the manual stuff, but no, I wouldn't know how to set up the automatic. They'll have to do that. And they'll also have a guy in there with me to actually run it, since I don't know how to push buttons, especially on something that's new. Let
Yeah.
me rephrase that. Even on something that's old, unless you go back to precision presses, I don't deal with them. If they put in a precision, no problem. Anyway, what's going on in your world, though, besides what you're already up to?
You talking to me or Richard or
Anybody
Timothy?
who wants to answer that. So let me tell you. So I was at Action Engineering the week before this and went to a company called Sobots. Have you heard of them?
No.
SEWBOTS. Okay. So they got a write up in one of the major magazines about 5 or 6 years ago where they are automating garment making. So, and the place is located in Georgia, by the way. So, what it was about 10 years ago, the Department of Defense realized that garments for the military were not being made in the U.S. Cost here was pretty high. I know, stupid, right? But nevertheless, so what they did was they decided to see if Georgia Tech would put together a team that could come up with a way of making garments for in the U.S. for the military. And the Department of Defense funded all of this. And so it's now 10 years later. The team were all obviously at Georgia Tech. And in speaking to them, they have never issued an invoice because they haven't sold anything in 10 years. How's
Mm.
that for you? Department of Defense has picked up the tab. So anyway, Eric takes me out there. We meet with Raj. Raj is a gentleman who sold his company for 170 million and is heading up this project. And you walk in to the factory area. It's a 100,000 square foot facility. Looks like you're walking into a trade show. All right. So in that facility, there's this big cage. It's probably about 10 to 15 feet wide and maybe 30 to 40 feet long. And in there are a bunch of quote unquote robotics. So here's a part that I thought was amazing. No one is in the cage. They're going to manufacture a t-shirt. All right. So at the beginning, there's a stack of fronts and a stack of backs. So this machine comes and picks up one sheet of the back and moves it forward, and then it picks up one sheet of the front and attach and puts it on top of the back. Okay. So the first thing I'm thinking of is for years and years, we've been able to do t-shirt takeoff, but we haven't been able to put them on. They've tried it with adhesive rollers, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing worked. This is able to pick up one sheet from a stack. So already
is it pre-printed?
There's no print on it at all. This is just white fabric.
Okay.
Okay, white t-shirt fabric. So I'm looking at it thinking, holy shit, if you can pick up one sheet, that means you can pick up a t-shirt and slide it onto a pallet. So to me, that immediately has huge money involved in terms of that. But in any event, it marries the top to the bottom. It then moves it forward. It gets hemmed on either side and finished on the bottom. Then it gets picked up, moved to the next station where it gets a taped collar and the collar is set in. Then it picks it up, moves it to the next station where the right sleeve is put in. Then it moves it to the next station to the left sleeve getting put in. And then it goes out the door. Not a human to be seen. And they feel that they can dominate the garment industry with that and do it out of the US by setting up these lines. So this was their second unit. And they're in the midst of building a more a unit that uses smaller robotics and takes up less space and is faster. So they didn't have it on high speed. It took 3 minutes for that garment to be made. So I said, how fast can it be made? can be made in about, with this machinery, in about a minute and 5 seconds. But they also didn't have, they had automated cutting, but they didn't have it attached to bring it over to that area, which is no big deal for them. So that's a simple situation. They said on the new unit, they'll be able to do a shirt in about 50 to 55 seconds. So that doesn't sound all that fast, but here's the thing. At 1 minute, that's 60 shirts an hour, right? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no sick pay, no headaches, no holidays, no nothing. All it needs is technician to make sure that nothing stops and nothing gets, obviously it needs maintenance and stuff. So you have this thing that can do,
10,000 shirts a week.
Huh?
10,000 shirts a week.
And that's just
And that's,
one unit.
Yeah.
Okay. They're looking at putting in a 1 million square foot facility. And they're going to move it to southern Georgia. So it's right outside of where the cotton fields are, so that it goes from cotton. They're going to have their plant set up to do the combing, the spinning, the knitting, and then from there, the cutting and the sewing. They do have a cornette machine in there right now so that they can embellish, but they are certainly looking at putting in screen print, mostly because the digital market is 5% of the market and the screen print market is 95%, even though it's a dying art.
Yes.
I like that phrase, art.
Dying art my ass. Okay. In the meantime, it won Best of Show with that dying art. At the show, there was a write-up on the awards, and the company that won Best of Show was Calibri with a fine art print. And the last line on it, it won with from a dying art. It's like, really? Screen print is dying. In any event, they're looking at putting in a 1 million square foot facility. It's probably going to be about 2 years before they put that together. When they do, man, they can absolutely go crazy because the cotton that they were using, I mean, the garment was a beautiful garment. They'll be able to come in at the same price point as anyone from overseas, but it'll all be American made. And they plan on being able to do it in a way where they can fulfill an order in 24 hours, including custom dyeing.
Wow.
You might speak to Eric and see if he can arrange for you to take a visit once your hip is better. It was absolutely impressive. The fact that
what are they going to do about color
involved.
and fabric content?
I'm sure they were just using 100% cotton right now because they want it to come straight out of the cotton fields. So they want the whole thing to be domestic from stoop to nuts. They can certainly add in polyester. I mean, we can certainly make poly in this country, no problem knitting that. But
are they trying to keep the eco, like field to body type vibe?
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of cotton fields down in southern Georgia.
Yep.
And so that's where they plan on building in this bigger factory.
Wow. That sounds cool.
It was awesome. I mean, listen, I've been at this for a long time. There isn't a whole hell of a lot that just blows you away. Watching a garment being made from inception to finished product without a human hand touching it was pretty awesome. And someone said, "What about the embellishment? Is that also being done by robotics?" I said, "Not at the time." Do I think they could? I mean, come on. If you can do all of this stuff. So one of the things I said is, that first part to me was the most impressive, where it took one sheet of fabric and placed it on top of another. I said, the problem that I see is in takeoff with an automatic takeoff. It's also your inspection station. They said, we can build it so that we have a camera that focuses on it that can read if there's something that's out of tune and stop the machine instantly without having a person on it. So wow. They would certainly be able to automate a huge amount of what goes on. The upside and downside. The upside doesn't require a whole lot of people. The downside is it doesn't require a whole lot of people. It could put a lot of people out of work. A lot of the people sewing, etc., that could definitely impact them heavily,
Well, no
especially
one wants to work right now, anyways.
well, that's in this country. I mean, in third world countries, Honduras, El Salvador, etc., cut and sew is still a very big business down there. And would it cut into that? If they have this factory built with all the lines that they would be contemplating putting in, why go to Honduras if you can do it locally? And if you get response immediately. And price point wise, you're at the same price point.
That's exciting.
It is.
I mean, it doesn't scare me at all
Oh, it
because
shouldn't scare you. It should actually make life that much more pleasant in that sense.
oh
I
yeah.
don't, they, will they blow away the screen printer? You know, no chance. Because even if they can handle a lot of jobs, do they want to take on every job that comes in their direction? When you have this type of situation, you're basically looking at the bigger jobs. Could they do the small ones? Of course they could. Um, the thing about screen printing is you're going to deal with a lot of local people. And does someone really care where it's made? Very often not, but at times they do. Look, Custom Ink is doing. Richard, you ever get any? I heard Custom Ink is doing about 300 million a year.
It makes perfect sense. They've
Okay.
got three factories now. They're building another one.
Well, they have the
And
three, and they're also contracting off to like I don't know, 80 or 90 printers. So,
yeah, that
but
also.
has that really affected the local printer? Not to the extent that they can feel. I mean, not only that, because they're feeding to like 80 or 90 print shops, even though they're not getting rich on it, it's taking care of their nut in times of in more difficult times, shall we say, or in the off season. So even though you're not making money, it's at least covering your overhead. And when you are busy, you take fewer jobs. So if you've got $300 million worth of business that isn't really being circulated to the average print shop, doesn't really matter. I somehow think we will not see Alex today.
Well,
Where's he
how
from?
many?
Well, he works for EasiWay.
Well, let's call
So,
another person we know with EasiWay.
huh? Alan Howe?
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
not doing
well,
nothing. He's just fishing.
that's all right. If we don't catch Alex this time, I'll catch him next time. Sooner or later, we'll get him on. Doesn't matter. We can have our own discussion and not worry about it. Richard,
And
did you see anything at the show that was out of the ordinary for you?
Well, Rico had a development machine that didn't have a code number and isn't promised until next summer. And it was printing on polyester, inkjet printer, but it didn't have a traditional mesh prep. I mean, not mesh prep, a preprint.
Okay.
So they're inkjet printing a clear something that can go through an inkjet head. So it's not an ink, it's clear, but
Right.
it's chemically reactive with the white ink that comes after that. So they were printing it on what Helene, the lovely lady that demonstrated it to me. So it is a treatment, but it's an ink, because the typical pre-treat that we've been using for the last 25 years, it's saltwater based and would destroy a head in a week. This is clearly something different. But think about what Magna Colors and Bepiqualia's Virus Ink Company, they've also chemically developed white bases that chemically react with the other inks and don't dry in the screen.
Yep.
So they aren't your grandpa's water base. And I've always been a person that didn't like using the word water-based because Terry Kaiserman taught me how to make water-based ink back in 1983. And sure, there's some water in it, but there's much more solvents, humectants, mildicides, and other things that slow the evaporation of the ink down. And I told us in seminar after seminar, I would not dip my finger in water-based ink and put it in my mouth. I would with plastisol because I know it wouldn't taste good, but there's poisons, especially the VOC nature, that the humectants and the retarders that are in water-based ink. So there's always a co-solvent, and the modern inks clearly have more co-solvent in it and other reactive things that react with each other when they bond with colors that are printed on top of them. So they call it an enhancer. So I asked, what happens when you print it on a red one? And they didn't have any red shirts because it's dye sublimation that we're worried about with 100% polyester. They also, when I asked, what happens when you put it through an oven instead of heat sealing it? Because she took it over and put it under a very hot iron, but says that it cures at 240, 250. But she did it at 300 something to demonstrate how tough it was. But I said, what happens when you put it through an oven? And she said, why would you do that? So I have, of course, every client that I have that has 2 or 3 GTXs or Epson 3070s, 3 of them facing a Firefly or a big sprint oven from M&R, they're run them through a really good dryer because it's got to spend at least 2 or 3 minutes in a conveyor dryer to cure the ink properly. So it may be it's the ticket because the enhancer is not a pretreatment because it doesn't have the salt-based corrosiveness. Well, in many ways, that was the only thing that was unique.
Well, so I was working at the apparel zone, which I kind of avoided only because of what they gave me to print. But in any event, Brian, who sells those pre-treatment machines, I forget his last name, came over and said he's got a situation where he can print on 100% polyester red with any white plastisol and it won't bleed. And so he brought over a red. I don't know how the shirt was treated because I didn't really get a chance to chat with him. Whatever it was 100% polyester. We ran it on the M&R press with their design, which happened to have white on it. Ran it through the oven. Stayed dead white. And so they've definitely developed something in that their quote unquote pre-treatment or whatever they're dealing with that is allowing any plastisol, and it was not a low bleed. It was just a matter of fact, it was a base down white, so it would have bled very, very easily. Didn't bleed at all. So to me, I thought that was pretty interesting, especially for those who have DTG machines. And one of the reasons that a lot of people have avoided them is because they can't go on poly or polycotton.
Mm-hmm.
With whatever he's doing, they can go on any shirt they want. So interesting stuff. Other than that, I mean, I'm always fascinated. I never even went over to the other area where all of the other printing situations are, the offsets and all of that stuff. But I'm always amazed by some of the robotics that you saw, that were lifting up the sheets of plastic and moving them in place with a big arm. I mean, impressive looking, certainly, but didn't really see anything that was so earth shattering. But nevertheless, in the past, this was a show where people saved all of that new stuff. I'm not sure how much new is hitting the market right now. Then again, you can only have so much new, and it's possible that some of the new stuff is stuff that just doesn't affect me, so I don't go looking for it. But I think the thing that I noticed, you had M&R that had a big presence. Obviously, you had rock that had presence in two areas. I didn't know. I don't know if you. I didn't see Workhorse there, and I didn't see MHM, which
Right.
I find really puzzling. But I guess they must have their reasons for not showing. I think whatever, some of the shows, it's not who is showing, it's who isn't showing that kind of is more interesting.
Well, also no stretch devices, uh, no
Right.
ink, no ink companies.
Correct.
Um, this is certainly the first show that Don Newman has missed since I started doing shows with him in 1984.
Yeah.
Um,
I've seen him at shows since I saw him from 79 on. And I was really shocked that he wasn't there. Virus wasn't there, which is usually in M&R's booth. I didn't notice any ink companies. I saw that
oh,
they had people drifting around and working out of booths, but they didn't have their own.
well, the nobody from Stretch Devices even showed up to walk the show. So James Orcher or Don just to show and sit somewhere,
Yeah,
just to not come. It's just disappointing because here's the time to wave the flag again, say that we're all alive, ready to work.
yeah. Well, I think what's going to be interesting is what shows up in the January show. If they
Yeah.
weren't here and they don't show up in January, then the question is, where the hell are you?
Hmm.
And maybe that's why they didn't show. Maybe they feel that the January show is more of a screen print show, which I would certainly agree with. Where this is
Mm-hmm.
definitely not a screen print show. Nothing that they did highlighted screen printing at all.
uh, the the big main stage, or well, let's go to something different. No educational programs at
Right.
all. They had a main
Correct.
stage where people got to put on their advertisements, and
Yep.
you had a lot of big speakers. None of them addressed screen printing. There were no screen printers talking. So the made stage that was helped out by Screen Printing Magazine. There was screen printing way in the back there. That's where the Women in Screen Printing awards were given out.
Correct.
So several of our friends were, all the lady friends that we know,
Mm-hmm.
some great names, continuing what Screen Printing Magazine is doing for women in screen print. In the early '90s, Susan Vanell did a women in screen printing
I remember
program, and
that
yeah, WISP,
with Pat
right,
Fresner and some of the others that were involved. That lasted for a couple of years and then it faded away. And
right.
of course, I think what Screen Printing Magazine is doing now for women is great. The thing that I look at is, where the hell is anybody touting screen printing? I mean, yeah, they had the apparel zone. It was so disjointed that it wasn't even funny. I was supposed to run the manual, and I don't know if you saw the job that they put on there, because I had nothing to do with it. But part of it was to do some song and dance when they brought a group through and stuff. This is the design that they had me
Oh,
print. 5 colors with 4 flashes. I
Wow.
refused, yes. And so whenever I had a group go through, I never did a demonstration. I don't have to demonstrate to them that I can do this, and yeah, I can probably get out 10 shirts an hour. I mean, it was absurd.
Were they
To
all
do that,
fluorescents or something?
take 2.5 to 3 minutes to do a t-shirt. They may as well go to DTG. It's
right.
fast, so and it was supposed to be, there wasn't supposed to be any ads on it. Really? It was a
M&R.
screen with a big M&R logo in the middle. Nothing against M&R, but still.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I that's why I didn't hang out in my area very much. I had a total of 4 women print shirts during the 3 days.
Wow.
Normally, I would go through dozens and dozens and dozens of shirts. Would you want to wear that shirt? Like I told somebody, yeah, if you print the shirt and take it home, you can wash your car with it. Don't wear it, just wash
Mm-hmm.
your car, but make sure you don't get the ink all over your car.
Oh,
It was absurd. The job that was on the M&R automatic had their logo on the bottom again. When I spoke to Josh, he said, I sent out a letter outlining all the things we want and what we don't want. It was like nobody read the letter. I said, on top of that, there was no workflow. I had people coming in saying, whose booth is this? And it's like, it's not a booth, it's actually the apparel zone. Anyway, what's interesting is Josh came out of the ISS show. Carrie came
printwear.
from printwear, and they do write about. I mean, she definitely does write about textiles, etc. But they were brought in to deal with textiles. Uh, much as I like both of them, they just really missed the ball on this one. They had the opportunity to really highlight it, and I thought it was a failure. And going to see if I can get Josh on here with Cassie to see if we can kind of poke around and find out what we can do for next year. Although next year it's in Atlanta. Yeah, good for you. Listen, all 120 people that are going to show up, you can talk to every one of them as long as you want. Nothing
Yeah.
against Atlanta other than, if I were coming from overseas, do I want to go to Atlanta? Let me think about that. Matter of fact, I was talking to Mary from Delta. She said the crime rate in Atlanta has tripled in the last couple of years. Oh, and where's the Georgia World Congress? Right in the middle of that whole area.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shit show.
So the question is, do I want to take a hotel that's right there so I can't come out at night? Or do I want to take a hotel that's out of town and have to Uber it every morning and every evening?
You're
Neither one of
always
which.
welcome to stay with us
I'll
and
keep that
smoke
in
your
mind.
cigar outside.
I may take you up on that.
Yeah, that's no problem.
And it's recorded right now, so I can come back and
Yeah.
I can reference this so that, if you try to get out of it, I mean, I've got you on record.
Well, just get it before Richard calls
All
dibs.
of us, all of us will be calling you saying, "When is
Well,
my room ready?"
it's like, Sean, how many rooms do you have available?
Yeah.
And will you shuttle us? We'll take care of getting you in, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll get you a free pass.
You
Awesome.
know, uh, nothing against Atlanta or the East Coast. Why they don't leave the damn show in Vegas where it draws the most people every time doesn't make sense to me.
People go out for what they want and then have a great time in Vegas or places like that. I'm not thinking New Jersey, but
You know, uh, the show is one thing, and certainly the show is important, but it's what you do after the show also. In Vegas, you can entertain wherever you want. I had friends who came in from Poland, and they brought in the rest of that group from England and from Switzerland. Are they going to come to the show next year in Atlanta? Not even a remote chance. It's not, and I think as this show is coming back, that was a stupid move. But hey, what do we know? We're just printers uh, in a dying art.
And look at how many people from Europe did not come this year.
Right. We did have some. I was talking to a guy from Bangladesh. I was talking to someone from Argentina. Uh, and I'm not talking about exhibitors because exhibitors will come from wherever. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, there was quite a bit from Mexico. Not that it's that far away, but even in the past, Mexico has always had some kind of presence. At the last one, none when it was in Dallas. Um, Certainly from some of the islands and stuff, I picked up on some of the accents, but there were a decent amount of Europeans, maybe not on the screen print textile on the textile screen printing side, but there were a decent amount. Nowhere near what we used to get. You didn't have even from the members of the academy. I mean, the luncheon uh, wasn't that much smaller than it usually is, but you didn't have people like Alex or Kaza or Don wasn't there. There were certain people that were missing
And it was
that
a lunch,
usually,
right?
huh?
And it was a lunch, not a dinner.
It was a luncheon, which honestly, I think that's wrong. You know, they had wine, but if you had to go back to your booth, did you really want to drink
Right.
and then go back to work? And not only that, but we had to cut it short. I mean, the whole thing went from 11 to 1, and that included the induction and everything. Um, Pretty short period of time. Normally when we do the dinners, sometimes they got drawn out way, way too long. I understand that too, but
I bet people can leave if they want.
they can. And in the, you know, we certainly conducted more business in the past during the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be a happy medium, but I don't. To me, the luncheon part just didn't make sense.
It's during 2 critical hours in the middle of the day of a 3-day show.
Yep, and to me, that's wrong. Um, you want to keep it to 2 to 3 hours. Do it from 6 to 8, 6 to 9, and cut it at that point, and
Mm-hmm.
that's fine. The meal would have been identical. You
True.
know, um, I, and you're not cutting 2 hours out. You're cutting three because you got to first drift over there, and then of course at the end you end up chatting for a while and drifting. So you're killing 3 hours in the middle, and man, that's just a lot to give up if you're at a show.
Right.
So who knows? Anyway, we seem to have lost Sean. Must be his hip.
Ah, no, he took a WhatsApp call.
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case.
Another call came in.
So, Timothy, are you don't know who you are?
Um, Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
I'm
we can.
listening.
Oh yeah. I'm just directly a screen printer, but then like I heard about you too, so I just want to learn a thing or two from you guys. That's why.
Well, ask some questions. We're certainly available to answer.
Oh yeah. Like I don't really have a specific questions on my mind right now, but then like I don't know, it's been really interesting just like listening to like all the knowledge that you guys just like put out. So yeah.
So how long have you been printing?
I've been printing for like 10 years now. So yeah.
And where are you located?
I'm located in Toronto, like Canada, Toronto.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I used to go. We used to do a show up there years ago.
For impressions.
Yeah, yeah. It
Uh,
was the Imprinted Sportswear show, and we did it in Toronto and we did it in Vancouver.
uh,
Used to
I guess
love it.
yeah, I guess like the market over here is just like way too small compared to the states. So like it doesn't make any sense, you know. It's too
Well,
much
they
work.
still have the show. Tony still conducts the show that's up there, doesn't he?
I don't know. I is it normally in January?
Um, no, it was
I got
actually it used to be more towards the springtime.
Uh, I don't know. I don't think I heard of it. I never because I only heard of like all the trade shows like happening in the states and yeah. So
No,
well, certainly.
there's an imprinted sportswear show, not from the same organization.
yeah.
Tony Musili was the guy who ran it, and he did it in Toronto, in Vancouver, and I think he was even doing one somewhere in between. I forget which town, but I thought he was still doing that because the magazine I think is still around. I'd have to
Okay.
look it up, but Richard, you remember? You remember that show?
I don't remember another show in Canada. No.
Oh no, I did them a bunch of times, but I mean we're going way back because I still had my supply house at the time, so it was the 1990s.
Well, when Impressions used to do 7
Right,
trade shows around the country, and they cut that back to just 3 or 4:
right.
Dallas, Fort Worth, Tampa, and or Orlando, Atlantic City, um, and Long Beach. But they used to do them in Chicago, Philadelphia instead of Atlantic City.
Yep.
Um,
But they also did Toronto and Vancouver. But I still have the
yeah,
little buttons and stuff, and they did that for quite a few years actually. And
yeah. I remember being. We stayed at the York Hotel in Toronto,
yep,
and I remember Scott Fresner couldn't make it one time, and I had to cover for him.
okay,
An hour before showtime, uh, somebody came to me and said, "Oh, Richard, we were wondering."
yeah.
I
No, I know that feeling. No, I remember doing the shows up there because it was held near the airport, is where the convention center was in Toronto, and I can remember
Mhm.
a gentleman's club called the Landing Strip because it was right near the airport. But we stayed at was it the Swiss Hotel that was on the airport grounds, and we just hop a cab to and from the convention center. Classes were, seminars were well attended, considering where we were. Probably about
Mhm.
30 to 40 people in a seminar. Um, Show itself, of course, was not huge, but was always well attended based on its size. And then the one in Vancouver was really good because I have to admit, Vancouver is just such a great city for
Mhm.
Asian food, even back then. But
I have another questions that I want to ask you, Charles.
go
You
ahead.
you're mentioning like you're doing like another 2 days workshop. Is it in January in Long Beach?
I am. I'm doing two workshops and three seminars. So the day before the show, I'm doing a basic workshop.
Yep.
And then on the first day of the show, I'm doing an advanced workshop, which will cover four color process and simulated process. And I do have an automatic that's going to be in the room.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah, looking forward to that. I did it with an automatic in the room prior to the pandemic. And then, of course, the pandemic hit
Yep.
and that killed all the shows after that. So, I did speak to M&R about putting a press in January, and then another one, and then again at the Atlantic City show in March, which they said they would do. But right now we're down to three shows for the. It's no longer the ISS show; it's now the Impressions Expo. But there are three shows: is Long Beach, Atlantic City, and Fort Worth. And Fort Worth, really good show, but not enough to really justify having an automatic in the room.
Last question is I know most of the people is like M&R like people, but then like I don't know, recently I've been find out like about like MHM, and then like I find that like I don't know, in my opinion, I feel like they have seems like it's more printer friendly. What do you guys think about the machines? Because like I just got like a like I've been using M&R like manual, and then I just bought like a old like Sportsman. But then like I'm thinking maybe in the future I want to switch over to MHM just because like they're cheaper and then they're more user friendly. So
I didn't know that MHM was cheaper than M&R, but okay. M&R has that new machines coming out of India. They're
yeah.
Copperhead, which are definitely coming in at a incredibly low price, I thought.
Mm.
Uh, MHM makes a wonderful machine. I mean, I've done a lot of work for them over the years, even at their facility in Austria. Um, they make a great machine. I think I don't know who the distributor in Canada is. Right now in the US, the only distributor is SPSI,
Yep.
and they've been distributors for MHM for a very, very long time. Uh, the machine, a machine's a machine. It depends on who's running it and how well you know how to run it. It is certainly going to have an impact on which way to go. If you're accustomed to M&R, MHM definitely loads differently. The registration system is off of a pin system. Um, Depending on the model, um, you could be anywhere from maybe less than an M&R, which I find difficult to believe, to well above some of the M&Rs. The MHM 5000 is a unbelievable machine, but brutally expensive. I think, if you're looking at machines, to me, going to the January show would certainly make a lot of sense, only because theoretically all of them should be at that show. You should be able to
Yep.
kick the tires and check them out and see how each one functions different, the same and differently than the other one.
Doesn't John Potter live in Canada?
England.
I thought he was from. I thought he
No,
was from Canada.
he lives in the UK. And I believe he's now the CEO.
Yep.
Okay.
But it only takes a few moments to quick email MHM
Yep.
at their home website and ask about whether they're going to be in Long Beach, because I'd hate to see you go to Long Beach and there's no MHM. I mean,
well, not only that, if you're looking for MHM and they're not in Long Beach, then you have to ask yourself, why not?
Yeah, because that would be the ultimate like screen print show for the whole year, right? The Long Beach one.
No question.
Well,
if you have one to go to in the entire world, Long
Yeah.
Beach has always been it for the last 25 years.
Yeah. Well, in the last 5 years, it's become the screen print show in the world. Yeah, and if you are contemplating going, I would tell you to book a room as soon as you can, even if
Okay.
it's one that you make sure, even if you're not sure if you're going to go, I would book something that I could cancel. Otherwise, you're going to be taking taxis from downtown. And the surroundings to Long Beach are not exactly the nicest.
Cool. Good pointers. Yeah. I don't know. I just find out like I don't know. I recently find out about the In Kitchen and then like Shirt Show and all the other like really knowledge based like platform. And then it's just like I don't know. Is you guys are doing something amazing to giving back to the community because like not a lot of people willing to share the knowledge. It's really gatekeep like society to an extent. So yeah.
Well, I do this every 2 weeks, so the next one will be in 2 weeks. Maybe Alex will show up for that one. We'll see.
Okay.
But if not, I guarantee you we'll still be around. So if you have any questions or anything that comes up, throw them out there. We have no problem trying to address them.
Thank you so much for all the knowledge.
I think I'm going to call it quits right now because I do have guests coming. I've got to go and warm up my pizza oven and get my heaters going because it's gotten all the way up to 57, which is not going to do a whole lot for me. So, Richard, thanks so much. Timothy, thanks for coming on.
I'll see you in 2 weeks, Charlie.
Yeah.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Sorry, go ahead, Timothy.
Oh no, I just say like I wish you guys have a wonderful day. So yeah.
Well, thanks so much, guys. Have a good one, Richard. I'll be speaking to you soon, and look forward to seeing you down the road.
Okay.
Sure. Have a good day. Cheers.